Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. Welcome in. Thanks for joining us today. I think we're just going to get started. All right. So, first, I just wanted to kind of set the premise of why we're all here today. And it's basically this. For the last 25 years, the way that people have discovered new brands and have access information has been very static. You put a couple words into a text box, and in return, you'd get 10 blue links that you would have to click through to find your information that you're looking for. And that era is now completely over. I think we are witnessing the single biggest shift in digital discovery since online search was even invented. Gone are the days of the way that a librarian would point you to the book, and now we have a synthesizer that would read all the books and just give you the answer. And there are a lot of different tactics and strategies to get your brand, your company name, to show up in an answer, in an LLM answer, like ChatGPT, like Claude, like Perplexity. And those tactics and strategies is what we're calling generative engine optimization. There's a lot of different opinions on the way to get your brand up there. And to cut through the noise, I wanted to bring in two of the best in the industry that are doing this on a day-to-day basis to share their knowledge, to share some insights on how to get your brand to show up in generative search. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'll start with my good friend, my colleague, Mickey, one of the most brilliant minds in search. Mickey, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Mickey Schluter. I'm a supervisor of SEO/GEO and analytics here at Direct Agents. So anything from strategy to execution, getting your brand visible, I'm kind of your point person involved in that process. And I'll kick it over to Chris, let him introduce himself with Scrunch recently.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Thanks, Mickey. I'm Chris Andrew, co-founder and CEO for Scrunch. Scrunch helps you understand and optimize your presence in AI search. Started the company a little over 2 years ago. Really thrilled to be joining the webinar to dig into the consumer behavior shift, some of the data, some of the practical tips on what marketers can do about it. But thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. All right. So let's just jump right into it. I want to start with a very kind of broad level. How do you, and this question is for everyone. I would definitely want to make this as conversational as possible. Feel free to jump in if you have something to say. How has search fundamentally changed in the last 12 to 18 months, and what does GEO in practice mean to you?
Yeah, I think I'll kick it off and pass it to Mickey here. I mean, I think it's why I started the company. I think consumer behavior changed, right? I think at its very simplest, if marketers stop marketing for a second and think about themselves as consumers, B2B or B2C, we realize that we've outsourced browsing. In the last 18 months, forget what we want to call it, we outsourced the task of browsing to AI. And if you outsource browsing, humans kind of stop visiting websites. Like, I think the follow-on impact of this gets really interesting. If I'm not browsing, AI is browsing. So you've actually got AI crawlers visiting web pages to broker interactions based on really deep intent. And so a couple things have happened. We've outsourced browsing. We need to think about websites and copy for AI, brokering interaction for humans. And it's happening at scale, right? So I think the last stats I've seen are 55-60% of searches in North America are answered instead of given links. And my favorite kind of examples of this are you talk to someone and they're like, well, I've never used AI search, but I love that Google answers the question for me. You're like, okay, take a deep breath. There's some model powering the retrieval and answer that's making your life amazing. You don't even know that you've outsourced browsing, but your behavior is changing. You couple that with not just the Google dominance. People forget Google is the #1 player in AI search when you look at AI overviews, AI mode, Gemini. But then you couple that with 900 million weekly active users for GPT. That stat came out this week. Consumers are habituating to these platforms. And I think one of the beauties of the shift is it's no longer the library example, John, you started with, which is I've got a question. Okay, let me go over here and find it. It's I'm moving from a Google search, which was 1 or 2 words. It was very like, point me in a direction, get me to the website, to I'm giving the prompt 10, 20, 30 words, really clear human intent coupled with memory. So I think the other really interesting thing is I'm bullish that the web becomes way more personal and interesting because we are giving context to models, and the model is going to map that intent to what it can find on the web. So I think if I were to distill a couple things that have happened, we've changed our behavior. We need to rethink who content is for. Models get more information than Google gets from a search perspective, and consumers are habituating to it. So that's maybe a over the top monologue to begin with. But Mickey, I'm super curious. You're in it even more than I from a deep SEO perspective, evolving into GEO. Like, how do you see the change over the last 12 to 18 months?
No, it's absolutely, you hit the nail on the head there. I think the biggest thing brands and people should be aware of is how users are searching for your products. Like you said, Chris, it's no longer 2 words or 3 words. It's, hey, I have a super niche problem and I need a niche solution for this specific issue. What kind of brands are there for me to figure this out? And, that's a fundamental change with how people are approaching search, because traditionally, Google didn't give you that insight. And traditionally we would type 3 or 4 words and hope we can find and sift through the information to understand what a potential brand may be that could solve my problem or help me find, it's the holiday season, help me find this gift for this particular interest that, my significant other has. So it's really all about how people are utilizing these platforms. And also, I think, in regards to the landscape, for a while, ChatGPT didn't offer links. Now they're being offered in citations and also with Perplexity and all these other different search engines. And, this was not there 8 to 10 months ago. And now it's something that's, commonplace, and people want to see how their brands are showing up on these AI search platforms.
Yeah, I think just to highlight that for a second, when we started the company 2 years ago, web search did not exist in the models. And I remembered well, my behavior's already changed. Like, I ask a question, GPT warns me, hey, Chris, this data is 6 months out of date. And I'm like, good enough. Like, consumers move to simplicity. Everyone's like, oh, is this just B2C? Look around. Like, it's white collar workers that are outsourcing the most thought through tasks. Like, help me find a B2B payroll platform for my 500 person company. Like, those are the first things to go. I'm not on GPT looking for toilet paper, right? I'm on GPT working through difficult processes, finding a financial advisor, evaluating car models, like stuff that I can't get my brain to compute. So I think we did this before web search existed, and now that it is real time, search is changing. And I think the headline is, it's still search, but we're just getting the answer.
Yeah, I think that's a solid point. And I think, from my experience, it's just changing so fast. It's so fast. The different models that are coming out is what seems to be like on a weekly basis, is actually changing the way that I use the models as well. To your point, search just came out 6 months ago, but it feels like now that's just the standard way that I search. And there's just new tools being added, on a daily basis. And I wonder, we talked about how this has evolved over the past 12 years, but what about more recently? Now with Gemini 3 that just came out, Claude Opus 4.5, it looks like ChatGPT 5.2 is coming out this week. I mean, it's just new models are coming out. How do you see this evolution just in the past 2 weeks, and maybe in the next 2 weeks, in the next month or so?
I think the first thing I keep an eye on is the pace of change is not going to decelerate, right? What's amazing about this is we've gone from one dominant player in search to 3 or 4 reasonable participants, right? Google, GPT, Meta, whether you want to use the AI search or not, is embedded across all their Instagram, Facebook properties, Perplexity, Claude, and there's so many. And so they're all going to keep leapfrogging each other. And I think we're going to get to a point where those of us that are probably tuning into a webinar like this are playing with all the models and we're loving it. The average consumer is not going to know. The model is probably going to know based on the prompt where to go apply, what model to apply to get the answer. These things are just going to keep getting smarter. Right. And so what's changed the last couple of months is, Gemini and Google rocketed ahead, maybe unsurprisingly. They invented this stuff. They were just probably, from a legal perspective, too concerned to let it out of the bag, and GPT pushed. Google's been very calm about continuing to execute and remain in their spot of dominance. And so the death of Google, the death of search is like a very, very silly narrative. If you actually look at the numbers, what else has changed is like, there's a lot that hasn't changed yet. Like, well, consumer behavior has changed on search. It hasn't widely impacted shopping. Everybody's all excited about shopping integrations. I think it still remains to be seen. Like, Meta for years has tried to get us to shop on Meta properties, but consumers have proven they kind of want to click to a Shopify site or buy on an Amazon app. We haven't wanted to buy dominantly off platform, right? So can GPT get us to buy in the GPT feed? They're going to give it every shot they have with Shopify, Etsy, with Walmart, with Instacart integrations, and it's going to be fun to play with. But I have not seen that consumer behavior shift massively. But Mickey, I'm curious what else you're seeing shift over the last couple of weeks.
No, I think again, nail on the head there. What I'm seeing with the agentic shopping stuff is you're right. It's tough to shop on these alternative platforms. People really prefer going to an Amazon, going to a Shopify site, things like that to proceed with their purchases. And I think a misconception is that everyone will just drop what they're doing right now and move to just shopping through ChatGPT or shopping through Claude and things along those lines. I do think, however, it's important for brands to realize that they need to show up in that search, however, even if they aren't moving forward with the purchase within ChatGPT, within Perplexity, within any sort of AI search platform. You want to make sure that if they go directly to the consumer site or directly to the site to make a purchase decision, that you're visible. Because if you're not in that conversation or involved in that decision-making stage, you're out of the game there. And I think that that's where I see agentic shopping coming into play, is making sure that your brand is visible when people are utilizing these platforms before they eventually move on to the D2C site to really understand and look at what they want to purchase.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, and I think you both touch on this, SEO isn't dead. GEO is not going to be replacing SEO in any way. You just need to be doing both now.
Yeah, I think there's a big misconception right now, and I think it's almost like this fear-mongering type. SEO is dead. You needed to be doing these things. It's not dead. The reality is that half of the sources cited on AI overviews are also ranking in the top 10 organic results. So there's a lot of overlap between which results are populating in these LLMs as well as what's on traditional search engine pages. Now, GEO doesn't replace SEO. It's a layer on top of your existing SEO strategy. If your SEO foundation is weak, your GEO performance will most likely be weak as well. And that's logical when you kind of think about how these AI models work. They're trained on web content. You see all these deals with Reddit, with all these different publishers to make sure that when they go through and assess the content that's existing across millions upon millions of pages, that what they assess is authoritative. And they still lean heavily on the same traditional SEO signals that, we've built a foundation on for the last 20, 25 years. You have to have domain authority, clean structure, content freshness. You want a fast site. Any sort of mentions and engagement signals. These are all important for the LLMs to really understand and comprehend how your site is being projected out there. And the thing is, this is also relevant to traditional search. Now, I don't want people to think that they can just skip this foundational phase and expect that top layer of GEO to hold. But I do want to dispel the fact that, I'm doing all this stuff organically and ranking number one. I'm going to be in AI citations. That's a misnomer. You're not necessarily guaranteed a spot in an AI citation because you're ranking number one overall organically. So you need this strong SEO base, and then you need that kind of GEO specific optimization layer where we take kind of those existing principles and kind of build upon them. So things like structured data, things like fact density, explicit use cases, and then any sort of product attributes if you're selling a product. We want to make things as friendly and easy for these AI search engines to digest and understand. And when we look at search as a whole, what these search engines are trying to do is provide me or you, when you're searching for something, the best possible response and answer and citations that are relevant to what you're searching for. And in order to do this, you need to make sure that you're checking all these specific boxes. So the reality is, Google is still here. The fundamentals very much still apply. Brands who are successful in traditional search, have a leg up on optimizing and preparing their website for AI search, but it's not a guarantee. Chris, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add there as well, but that's kind of how I look at this right now.
Yeah, I think anytime you have a new category emerge, sometimes the confusion is intentional in a space of just like, it's a nice headline to say SEO is dead, right? People will write that headline, and it's couldn't be more inaccurate, right? And I see people, people want to correct the record. Like, if you stop and think about it for a second, and like, I'll put you guys on the spot. What role in the marketing function has been marketing to technology? Like, what role in marketing has been marketing to machines? You guys can think.
It's the SEOs.
It's the SEOs, right? So like, who has been marketing to machines for the last 20 years? The only role that has been exclusively focused on that to a dizzying level are these like nerdy SEO people who are digging in on what the Google bot is going to do. No one was talking about humans. And it actually was really negative from a human perspective. Everybody was like, Google algorithm update, Google bot, indexing, crawling, blacklist, whitelist, white hat, black hat. Like, SEO is wild, right? But like, the people that have been focused on marketing to machines are your SEO agencies and your SEO team members.
Amen. Yeah.
It's never been more critical to understand how to market to a machine. Like, now every single one of us has a very elementary AI agent that is retrieving information. So like, when I want to buy a car, the 10 dealers and 10 brands are not marketing to me directly. They're marketing to an AI retrieval agent brokering a conversation for me. So to think about the foundation of SEO, like, you need to get indexed. You need to show up. I think the core difference I'd encourage people to pay attention to, once an AI crawler agent is on the page, it is behaving differently. Like, the difference between how a ChatGPT retrieval agent is accessing and synthesizing information is the core difference, but it is built on top of the SEO foundation. So yes, people are going to play with the headlines and take advantage of things, but like, if you're in an SEO seat, I would stop thinking of yourself as an SEO practitioner. Think of yourself as a marketer to machines that the entire company is going to rally around over the next few years.
So I have a question. I just want to kind of bounce off of that for a second. For the smaller players, for maybe a new emerging brand that's coming out, and they're competing against the bigger players that have been doing SEO for years, and they're already top ranking on the regular Google search results. Is there an opportunity now for the newer players? Maybe they're still not going to be able to show up in the top page of Google search, but if they do their GEO right, maybe they can show up in answers for an LLM model, and still maybe they have the ability to show up next to the bigger players or even before the bigger players.
Yeah, I think that is a very good point, because some people are like, why even bother? I compete with these large industry competitors. I think it's not a great mindset, considering there are so many different ways that people can discover your brand and your products. And it's just about identifying those prompts, identifying those keywords and ways and the intent that people are searching for things that your competitors may not be doing. So yes, you may be competing against an industry titan in your space, but there are specific niche, high value use cases where even if you only get, 10 different people searching for something similar in an AI search engine per month, those are 10 high value potential customers versus someone searching for something more general. So I think that it's kind of a misnomer to think that, I compete against these large brands, it's not even worth it for me to try, because there is so much opportunity out there if you just peel back the layers of the onion a little bit further and understand truly, like Andrew or Chris was saying, that you're looking at what these specific bots are trying to retrieve and what use cases you're trying to solve for. So I think it's kind of, I don't want to call it lazy, but to say like, I'm giving up on this because I'm against these big industry players, I think it's kind of, you're doing yourself a disservice, because there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd extend that and completely agree, but I'd extend it one step further even, which is if you're an upstart brand or you've not traditionally dominated in SEO, there's a lot of legwork that goes into fixing that, right? Now, one of the interesting things with GEO, with AI search, and as an aside, I hope all the acronyms go away and we call it search.
Yeah,
like it's search.
I agree. I think it's
powered by AI. You're trying to retrieve answers, right? Like, again, people are capitalizing on confusion with like 15 different acronyms. But my observation is that if you're an upstart brand and your website doesn't rank and it doesn't show up, go look at what websites are ranking for the key citations that matter. Like let's say you're a niche, one of the things we're playing with is like scrunchies, like the hair extension, the swag, right? Like our brand is called Scrunch because we think you need to collapse information to make it easy for retrieval. That's why we've named the company Scrunch. So we have scrunchie swag. Let's pretend we wanted to sell these scrunchies. We don't. We give them away for free. We would not rank for scrunchies right now. Like no one's looking to our website to buy scrunchies. But if I go look, hey, what's the top place to buy scrunchies on the web? And GPT cites 5 websites. If I could get my brand mentioned on those existing 5 websites, I know GPT is retrieving information off those pages. We see companies that deploy an effort to look at the top third-party presences, go work with those publishers through our platform to get listed and mentioned, maybe not even your website site, but you could get your brand mentioned. And all of a sudden you're in the answer, maybe a day later, because these models are often live retrieving information at the point of a prompt. I'm asking a question, it's pulling information, it's sourcing an answer. And so the opportunity has never been greater to go pursue a niche kind of channel and to think about some of the positive shortcuts. Like sometimes these other websites that have not ranked historically are ranking because the models are allowed to crawl them. Some of the more dominant web players are blocking the crawlers because they don't want them stealing their content. And so instead of the Wall Street Journal showing up first every time, you might have a tier 2 publication that shows up. Go work with them, get your brand mentioned, make sure it's accurate. Those are some of the core shifts that I encourage people to think about just practically.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, there's this on-site component to it too, but, the way we look at GEO is search everywhere. So you have to understand that people are searching and finding things in all these different places, and you need to be at that crossroads wherever your potential customer may be searching. And to Chris's point, they could be finding this information on AI search and within ChatGPT, and there's these specific resources that pop up time and time again in your specific industry. And it's important to form those partnerships. And that's another layer to it, is there's this third-party entity component of things that extend beyond your own web page that will help you be successful in the AI search space.
That's interesting. Thank you. All right, I want to go into some of the platforms because I know this is a topic that comes up all the time when we're talking about GEO. What role do external platforms, we're talking about YouTube, Reddit, Wikipedia, what role do these all now play in GEO, and why do AI models rely on them so heavily?
Yeah, I think I'll quickly start. I think the best thing to do is to manually go look at this yourself to see what sources are trusted by these models. Please buy our software. I'll be first in line to ask you to do that, but just go run the search yourself. Go open an incognito browser, use GPT, use Gemini, use Perplexity, see what things are showing up, and then start to think about, well, for these types of queries, for top of funnel kind of awareness queries without my brand, the model seems to use comparison sites or Wikipedia pages or news publications. For bottom of funnel kind of comparison prompts of my product versus someone else, it tends to use my site, a competitive site, and Reddit or a YouTube video, right? Go look at what it's using. You'll immediately start to get a sense for brand authority as the models consider it. Don't make it up, just go do the work. Then we'd love to help you do that at scale, whether that's looking at hundreds of millions of actual consumer prompts, what are people actually asking in the models, or synthetically generating prompts and seeing what the actual answers are. Just put in the work to understand what is valuable and rank it. Okay, these ones matter. And then think about prioritize efforts to go engage. One thing I would massively steer people away from, don't try to trick the model, right? Don't go mess with user-generated websites. Don't go to Reddit with a workflow tool and comment on a bunch of posts with your brand. Maybe you'll see a spike for a day and then you'll get banned from Reddit, or people will recognize that it's a spammy approach to content. We don't encourage people to go create thousands of AI-generated content posts because I think you'll see a short-term spike and then dilution. I would really think about the quality sources that matter and then work with them to make sure you're present. Building a Wikipedia page is a battle, right? You've got to do it the right way with credibility over time. Take the time to go get it right? Having a Reddit strategy often means you need to have a good customer strategy. Your customers need to engage on your behalf. You can't go engage directly without a lot of risk. You need to be really thoughtful about how you engage. But the reason those sites have some prominence is because the model sees them as an unbiased source. Now, I will highlight, you can still trick the models. You can go create unbiased third-party sources, right? Like go create a blog post on a third-party website and pretend to do an authentic comparison. That'll work. It will work. I don't think it's high integrity to do it, but like know that like the model will see a third-party website comparing products and be like, this one's less biased. Let's trust it, even if the data is wrong. So there's going to be vulnerabilities in the models that companies have to pay attention to. But those are some of the things top of mind when I evaluate what websites really matter.
Yeah, I think to add on to that point a little bit is the fact that, yes, there are ways that you could potentially game the system a little bit. But at the end of the day, these models are only going to continue to get smarter and smarter, and they act, almost as a human. I know so many people who would just have conversations and, participate in a conversation with these specific models about these things. So I think it's important to understand that, we're in a world right now where content has never been more easy to produce. But the issue is, people think that, if I make, 50 blog posts a month or 100 blog posts a month and just, do all these different service pages and whatnot, that I'm going to start ranking organically on traditional search as well as AI search. But that's not the case. These models, all these search engines are smart enough to sift through the junk that you're creating and the AI slop, if you would. So it's important that, to your point, Chris, where you're engaging, if you're using a Reddit marketing strategy, that it's authentic, that it's genuine, that it's high quality, you're providing value. Same thing with any sort of content that you're producing on your site. Don't think because you have a tool that can produce all this content, you're going to start ranking more highly on these AI search engines. The truth is the content that does well and the pages that will show up on AI search specifically are the ones that are well thought out, structured for AI parsability, have high quality content, kind of follow that old Google EEAT framework. You need to make sure that it's not a quantity game, but a quality game in regard to the content that's being produced. And those offsite engagement platforms that you're doing, like you said with Wikipedia, it can't be junk. You're not going to get approved to even have a piece of junk up on as a Wikipedia article. So it's important that the quality that you're producing is insightful, important, and of highest quality.
The other thing I'll cite is we see distribution ends up mattering again here. There's like a rise in the relevance of PR again, of like, oh, here's a press release. What's a press release? It's text. What do large language models like? Language. Like sometimes it's really, really simple what we can distill this to. If your website is packed with multimedia and JavaScript, the Google bot's gotten pretty sophisticated at picking it up. These AI crawlers have not. Will they get better? Probably. But distributing press releases, like we have a partner, Stacker, that helps syndicate news articles, right? I mean, literally it's like write a piece of content relevant to a certain audience, syndicate it across hundreds of media outlets. We can see the models are consuming it and citing it. We can see a lift in brand presence. So you start to complement your on-page web content strategies with your traditional third-party media PR distribution strategies, and you start to get a rounded out approach. Coupling that as well with just what's already working and can I get my brand on those sites, right? It's thinking pretty practically. I think it's unfortunate there's been a lot of black box in the AI search space of like, here's the volume. Nobody knows the exact volume of AI searches, right? And some of the guidance is wildly inaccurate, right? Like you just know it is when you start to look at Google volume versus number of GPT users. Your presence score, so many people are just making it up. Like we've seen people switch to our platform where they're like, wait a second, my presence on this other platform was 98%, and you're telling me it's 60%. Well, What were they evaluating? Oh, they were only looking at like branded prompts where, of course, you're going to show up in a branded prompt. We're going to show you just unbranded prompts for your personas, your buyers, for the topics we think you care about. Just like nobody's got a perfect silver bullet here. And I think disclaimers are just as important to build credibility because people feel like the rug's getting pulled out sometimes. Like, wait a second, this isn't what I thought it was. Like across our platform, it's like, what are we going to monitor? It's a subset. Let's give you a best guidance and let's start to evaluate the changes we can make and the impact they have.
I think there was something really important you said there early on too, just the fact that these are language models and they comprehend text and how things are, portrayed that way. And I think for brands looking to, immediately see kind of a performance uptake, and this is something we've utilized Scrunch to really understand as well, is understand how these AI bots and crawlers are coming to the content on your site and whatnot. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier, but if you don't have a website that these bots can crawl, you're almost invisible in AI search. So it's important to have that foundation in place. And I just wanted to comment and say that. And then also in conjunction with that, we talk a lot about how these models synthesize the information on the page. You want to have schema and metadata. That's, a traditional SEO thing that we've been, working on for 20 plus years. You want to have that incorporate and optimize for the LLMs, because that's kind of that appetizer for them before they dive into your page to really understand the context and what's going on there. But yeah, I just wanted to call that out because I do think it's super important that people understand that in order to show up in AI search first, you have to be able to be crawled. It sounds counterintuitive, but we see it all the time that there are instances where pages are blocked, or the site's loading slower. There's tons of JavaScript and things like that. So just wanted to call that out because I feel like that is super important.
No, that is a good point. And the way that the bots are all, from what I understand, all the bots might be different too, and crawling different things. So there's a lot to unpack there.
The other thing I'll highlight there is we are so early in this shift, and more sophisticated enterprises, partners of ours, are starting to think a little more comprehensively about strategy of what should be available to bots, right? So we do a lot of partner work with folks in the security bot management space, the Akamai's, the Cloudflares of the world, to start thinking, do I want my entire website as a training ground for AI? Maybe there's old content on your website that we don't want the models pulling to train from. And maybe there's portions of your website where you don't want the entire page live retrieved by a model. You're going to see governance layers emerging to say, hey, we want this page indexed by ChatGPT. We want GPT training on this page. I don't want GPT live retrieving this version of the page. It's not the right resource for live Q&A, right? So block it, or serve a portion of it, or optimize it for delivery, because AI is consuming differently than humans. So very, very early shifts, but that security infrastructure layer becomes a really, really important governance approach to what are you making available to models, and how is it impacting how you're represented.
That's very interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
No, all up to you, John.
No, well, I just noticed we're out of time, so I appreciate. Unfortunately, I got to wrap this up. Thank you both for joining today. This has been an excellent conversation. A lot of different insights that we can pull from here. And I hope that we can do this again, because it seems like this world is just constantly evolving almost on an hourly basis. So, the next time we speak, this is going to be a completely different conversation. But thank you again. And thank you to the audience.
Absolutely. May need a part.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Yes.
All right. Bye.